Now, let's talk about water resources. Water is one such resource or element in our environment that is extremely essential or the key to sustenance of life on earth. We cannot live without water even one day. Water is a vital, renewable natural resource, but also a resource that can be exhausted if we do not consider our usage. 3/4 of the Earth's surface is covered with water. That is why our planet is known as planet blue. However, the fresh water accounts for only 2.7% of all the water resources, and 70% of this fresh water comes from glaciers and ice sheets in Antarctica, Greenland and mountainous regions. Now, the oceans, which cover the another 2/3 part of Earth's surface, consist of saline water. But this saline water is not fit for drinking or direct consumption. But this is not useful for direct consumption. However, oceans support a rich variety of plant and animal life known as marine life. It is a renewable resource and is renewed by appropriately called the water cycle. Now, let's talk about the water cycle. The cycle through which the water resources get replenished and renewed in our environment naturally is known as water cycle. There are a series of steps that take place in water cycle, being condensation, precipitation, collection and evaporation. So, from this diagram, what do we observe? That the water gets evaporated in the presence of the sun. Have you ever observed that when you place a glass of water in heat, it starts to evaporate and turns into water vapor? But where does it go? It goes in our environment and takes the form of clouds. This process is known as condensation. Then, once the clouds become very heavy and they cannot attain more moisture and vapor in it, they start to rain. This process of conversion of the water vapor again into water and raining is called as precipitation. And this precipitated water or rainfall gets collected into water resources such as oceans, lakes, rivers again. This is known as collection. This cycle gets continued for a lot of repeat. This cycle gets continued all the time in our environment. Now, did you know a dripping tap wastes 1200 liters of water in an year? Therefore, we should always call a plumber and repair that dripping tap in our houses. Now, what are the uses of water? Why do we use water? Of course, the ocean water. As we discussed that the ocean water is saline and not fit for human consumption. We can only consume fresh water. And due to their location, they are also inaccessible. Only 1% of fresh water is available and fit for human use. Now, imagine the population of the whole planet and then compare that 1% water resources. Do you think it is enough? No, it is not. We do not have enough water resources for exhaustion or exploitation of these resources. Therefore, we should not waste water. These 1% freshwater resources consist of groundwater, the water that is found under the surface of the earth, surface water which runs in rivers, lakes, ponds, etc. and becomes water vapor in the atmosphere. Now, fresh water is the most precious substance on earth. Now, water can neither be added nor subtracted from the earth. It revolves, but at the same time, if we do not use it correctly, we will dry up the rivers that we are taking water from. Its total volume remains constant. Its abundance only seems to vary because it is in constant motion. As we saw the motion of water in water cycle, cycling through the oceans, the air, the land and back again, through the process of evaporation, the turning of water into water vapor, precipitation and water runoff. This, as you already know, is referred to as water cycle. Now, what are the challenges? Humans use a huge amount of water not only for drinking purposes but also for other things such as washing and the process of production in agriculture and industrial use. Water for agriculture, industries, generating electricity through reservoirs of dams is also consist of other usages. Now, these factors, when we use the water resources and exploit it, overuse it, it results in shortage of water. And these factors are increase in population because more people need more water, rising demand for food and cash crops, then increasing urbanization, becoming of large cities, and rising standards of living. Above are the major factors that lead to shortage of water and is the biggest challenge of the planet Earth right now. Now, have you ever heard about a water market? Amreli city in Saurashtra region with a population of 1.25 lakhs is completely dependent in purchasing water from nearby talukas or areas, because it does not have any water resources of its own. Now, what are the problems of water availability? In some parts of the world, there is not even one glass of water available. Therefore, how do the people survive there? It is very challenging for them. There is scarcity of water in many regions of the world. Most of Africa, West Asia, South Asia, parts of Western USA, Northwest Mexico, parts of South America and entire Australia are facing shortage of fresh water supply. Countries located in climatic zones, most are prone to droughts and they face great problems of water scarcity. Now, water shortage may be a consequence of variation in seasonal and the climate change that we are facing. Because of this, the annual precipitation or rainfall is affected and this thus causes the scarcity of natural water resources. It is caused due to over-exploitation and contamination of water resources. Whatever fresh water sources we have, such as rivers like Ganga, Yamuna, we have polluted them by throwing waste materials in them, by actually putting all the industrial waste into these rivers. Then how are we supposed to conserve our water resources? Therefore, there is a need to realize that we need to conserve our water resources. What are the methods that can be used for conservation of water resources? Now, of course, water is a renewable resource, but however, human practices such as overuse and pollution of freshwater supplies can result and be a great threat to our water resources. Therefore, we need an access to clean and adequate water sources. And what can be done for that? We need to take few immediate steps so that we can conserve our resources. Even though water is a renewable resource, the overuse can result in scarcity of water. Now, we need to limit the discharge of untreated waste material from farms, industries and other factories. These kind of materials, they pollute water and this cannot be consumed because it has some kind of heavy chemicals such as nitrates, metals and even pesticides. So, most of these chemicals are not biodegradable and once they reach human body, they may result in severe diseases. Forest and other vegetation cover slow the surface runoff and replenish underground water. We need to establish water harvesting system to harvest rainwater in order to actually avoid the surface runoff and consume the water we have. Then, water pollution can be controlled by treating the waste material from factories and agriculture plants. Now, this is how the river Yamuna is getting polluted due to sewage, industrial effluents and garbage. Now, what can be done further to conserve water? Canals can be used for irrigation to minimize the loss of water in seepage. In dry areas with high rate of evaporation, drip irrigation system or trickle irrigation can be very useful. The valuable water resources can therefore be conserved by adopting means of irrigation such as sprinklers. Sprinklers flow and sprinkle the water all around the grassland or the land once. Now, did you know that rainwater harvesting is a process of collecting rainwater from the rooftops and directing it in an appropriate location so that it can be stored and used for future purposes. On an average, one spell of rain for 2 hours is enough to save 8,000 liters of water.